you're suffering, you give up on the very things that you wanted the most. So when the suffering got too much, my dream died. And pretty much I almost died with it. If I didn't find Navy SEALs and getting past that hump, I would have never been up here today. You can't outrun your demons. They'll always know where you're hiding.
I walk around life with so-called headphones on my head, man. I don't, really wear them, obviously, but I just have these earmuffs on that I silence out the noise. I silence out the judgment. Those people get in our head.
The most important conversation is the one you have with yourself. You wake up with it, you walk around with it, you go to bed with it. Eventually, you act on it. And my conversation was a bad one. So the people who I thought were up here in my life, these uncommon men, I was putting myself down here. But over a period of time, I started realizing that I'm also uncommon. And I started picking those uncommon men off by realizing that we all have this ability in our mind.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and I make these videos because I need them. Because I don't always wake up and feel motivated to go take on the day. And the thing that saves me, that helps me every day, is being around people who are thinking bigger, who are changing the world, and it gives me a little more inspiration to go after my mission. And so I hope this video helps you go after yours today too. So today let's get some incredible motivation from the one and only David Goggins.
We live in a world that we want to be as comfortable as we can. And we wonder why we have no growth. We wonder why when the smallest thing in our life gets difficult, we wonder why we cower and we run away. Because we are kind of living our whole life is set up that way. Our whole life is set up in the path of least resistance. We don't want to suffer. We don't want to feel discomfort. So the whole time we're living our lives in a very comfortable area. There's no growth in that. So for me, I realized that. The reason I became 297 pounds is because that was comfortable. What was very uncomfortable was running. What was very uncomfortable was being on a diet. What was very uncomfortable was trying to face things that I didn't want to face. And I also realized when I was really big, I had no growth. Why? Because I was living comfortable. So I realized for me to find growth, I had to face all of these different things that made me very, very uncomfortable. One thing I faced was running. I absolutely hated running. But I knew for me to grow, I had to do this thing every single day. I wanted to start callousing my mind. I wanted to start becoming a better person. And how you become a better person, how you gain mental toughness, how you become the person you want to be, is constantly facing the things that you don't want to face. If you constantly run away from things that you don't want to face, how is there growth? How is there mental toughness? I can give you a class all day long about self-talk, visualization, eat an elephant one bite at a time. But if you're never putting yourself in a situation to actually practice these things, you're never going to grow. I can't put you out there we're all going through a battle in our mind. A warrior is not a person that carries a gun. The biggest war you ever go through is right between your own ears. It's in your mind. We're all going through a war in our mind, and we have to callous our mind to fight that war and to win that war. Your mind is so powerful, and I didn't realize it. I went through 3 Hell Weeks, Ranger School, Delta Force selection, all this stuff. This incident I'm going to explain to you right now was where I realized we are only at 40% of what we are capable of. Here I am. Right idea to do this race called Badwater 135. I Googled the 10 hardest races in the world. What came up? Crazy race in Death Valley. Summertime, 135 miles. I knew nothing about ultra running. I thought you would camp out, run 20 miles. Then one day, then run 20 miles again until you got 135 miles. I had no idea what I was doing. Called the race director up. He's like, hey, have you run 100 miles? I was like, what, in a week or what? What are you talking about? He's like, no, in 24 hours or less. I said, no. He goes, you got to qualify to get in this race. You have to run 100 miles in 24 hours or less. He was trying to call my bluff. I call him up on a Wednesday. He goes, hey, there's a race in San Diego on Saturday where it's a 24-hour race where you run around, a track, a 1-mile track for 24 hours. And if you get 100 miles, I will consider you in my race. It really helps to be smart, people. And I was not smart in this situation. I said, oh, I did the math. It's about a 14-something minute mile. I can do that. Anyway, I show up on Saturday with the blue lawn chair, Ritz Crackers Mileplex, and my ex-wife. And every mile I'm going to see her, I'm going to grab some Ritz Crackers and some Mileplex. I know what the hell I'm doing, but it's bliss. That whole ignorance is bliss thing. So I get to 70 miles pretty damn fast. I get to 70 miles in like 12, 13 hours. What do you think happens to your body when you haven't trained for that kind of mileage? A lot of bad things, but I thought I was in good shape. It was amazing. So I hadn't gone to the bathroom at all. I sit down, big mistake. I sit down in this blue lawn chair, I sit down, looking at my ex-wife, I'm seeing like 3 or 4 of her. And I'm like, this is not good. So I'm trying to play it off because I know where I'm about to go. So I'm sitting there, and when you haven't gone to the bathroom, you're dehydrated, your nutrition's all jacked up. You sit down, you gotta go to the bathroom now. So I look at my ex-wife and go, do you love me? She said, yes. Why? I go, because I'm gonna take a shit on myself right now. Because I can't stand up because my blood pressure's all messed up. So I'm sitting there literally pooping up my back and peeing blood down my leg. She's a nurse, so she's concerned. And I'm telling you right now, there's one thing you never want to hear as a black person. She said, you're starting to turn white. So I'm sitting there, and I'm all jacked up. And I'm like, okay, how in the world am I I got 30 miles to go. I should quit. But I didn't. What I started doing through this whole process was I started to study myself in the dark times. So instead of just quitting real fast, I said, no, I'm going to quit, but not right now. So I sat back for a second, and I said, let me get some water, let me hydrate, let me clean myself up a little bit, let me get some nutrition. I wasn't dizzy. It's okay. My feet are all messed up. Let me see if I can walk. I'm going to walk 1 mile, and then I'll go home. That'll be a great accomplishment for me, 71 miles. So I took this massive thing, and I started breaking it down into small chunks. And as I started breaking it down into small chunks, I started realizing maybe I'll walk 1 more mile. But at the pace I was walking, I wasn't going to make the time. So this is when I realized the whole 40% rule. Those of you who worry, red can't hurt me, you understand it. Basically, the 40% rule is when we have a governor on our brains, like a governor on a car. A car may say 130, but if you put a governor on a car, it can only go 101. We do the same thing to our brains. I was born with limited horizons, born on the other side of the tracks. I didn't think I could be anybody. So my governor was myself. So once you take that governor off, you have limitless horizons. I was in the Air Force for about 4 years, and my big thing was I wanted to be Air Force pararescueman, some of the best medics on the planet Earth. As I got in the program, I started realizing that they had this thing called water confidence. Basically, they make you very uncomfortable underwater. So I realized at that point in time that I hated being underwater. I hated holding my breath. For 6 weeks, I hung in the program. I didn't sleep at all for fear of going back to the pool, for fear of drowning in my head. About 6 weeks in, we had this physical, and they realized I have sickle cell trait. Back in the day, I used to lie about whatever made me feel insecure. On my official paperwork out of pararescue training, it has David Goggins left on a medical. But the truth of the matter is, I left because I quit. I had to find a different job in the Air Force. In 4 years being in the Air Force, I gained 125 pounds. I get out of the Air Force, and I'm working for a job spraying for cockroaches. 40 restaurants I was in charge of. I'd go in there at nighttime and I'd spray. I would stop at Steak and Shake, get a large chocolate milkshake. I would go across the street to 7-Eleven, get a box of mini donuts. On the way home, I'd be popping donuts like Tic Tacs. I would get home, turn the TV on. This is my routine. Start taking a shower and listen to the TV as I'm showering. This particular day, I started hearing Navy SEALs, toughest training. And I was hearing it cut out between the water hitting my ears. So I came out of the shower. At the end of the show, this commanding officer gives a speech. He says, we live in a society where mediocrity is often rewarded. These 22 men detest mediocrity. I invented this thing called the accountability mirror when I was growing up. And I got a chance to go into that mirror and look at myself and call myself out. I'm afraid of this, I'm afraid of that. Being raw and real about who I am and about what I'm hiding from. And so to overcome all this, my bright idea was to try to become the one thing I was afraid of. On the other end of suffering is a life that many people don't know even exists. It's a beautiful world because like the 40% rule, we all live in this world where our brains are keeping us in this box. Outside that box, on the other edge of suffering, which is on the other edge of that 40%, is a world that's endless of opportunity. But we are afraid to go outside that box because in that box it's comfortable. That's where all of our nice stuff, that's where the nice 4-lane highway's at. I know where the restrooms are at. I know where the gas stations are at. Outside that box, man, God gives you a shovel and says, man, start digging. That's not fun. But when you dig your own path to all kind of stuff that's unknown. And that's why I started realizing, man, like on the other end of this is some beautiful stuff. So I got outside my box and realized, man, 300 pounds, now look at me, I'm 185 pounds. And on the other side of the box was all this stuff. And I didn't know it was over there until I climbed the wall and saw it.
So what wall are you climbing now?
Man, right now I've climbed a lot of walls. There's no more walls anymore. The reason why is because I know how to climb. I was trying to figure out how to climb before. I got all the right gear, man. I got the ropes, I got the shoes, I got the chalk, I got the harnesses. I'm good, I'm not scared to climb anymore. I go to the rock, hammered in, I got my belay, and I'm good to go. So you gotta figure out how to climb first, and that's all. We all have a different way of climbing. That's why there's a lot of books out there on mental toughness. It's all crap. Why? Because it's a cookie cutter way. Life isn't cookie cutter. Like 3.14 is pi. It's how you figure out equations. We're all different equations. We all have a story. We all have to strengthen our mind to figure out our own equation. Once you figure out your own equation in life, you can then start picking away at how to be better. But you first have to figure out your equation in life. Once you figure that out, man, you can do anything.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there.
What was the greatest lesson your mom taught you growing up?
Honestly, the greatest lesson she ever taught me is a lesson that she doesn't know how much she taught me because she wasn't much in the teaching mode. My dad took her soul. But what I did as a young kid is I observed everybody. I wasn't really smart in the books, but I was real smart when it came to life. And I was able to sit back and watch her mistakes. I was able to see how she struggled through life and how I don't want to struggle through life. And I was able to see, she never picked me up. The biggest thing she did for me, and this is honest to God truth, and she doesn't even know she did it. When I would bust my ass, when I would fail, when I was at the bottom of the sewer, she never picked me up. She never gave me that cookie and said, hey son, it's gonna be okay. She didn't have time for that. And sometimes she gets upset when I talk about my past because it paints her out to be not the best mom. If I had any kind of mom in that kind of environment, I would have never made it. Because she forced me, for whatever reason, she forced me to, you better figure this out or you're gonna be a statistic.
Wow.
and this is something that she didn't sit down and tell me, I realized this. This is the world that is in front of me. And what most people do is they see this world and they look at it as an excuse to get out of it.
Yeah.
I started looking at it as this is the ultimate training ground for the rest of my life. I have all these valuable lessons, because if you look out in the world right now today, it's not a nice place, but I'm very prepared for it.
Yeah, you are.
I'm prepared for it. I'm prepared for all the failure coming my way. I'm prepared for everything my way. And that's the biggest lesson that she taught me by not teaching me, by never saying it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, she told me the exact opposite. Life sucks. That's what she knew. And it was the truth. If you read It Can't Hurt Me, I go into detail about my first 100-mile race, the race I wasn't trained for at all. And I went out there and ran 100 miles on a 1-mile track. When I got to mile 70 and everything went south, I mean, it went south. I've been through 3 hell weeks, Ranger School, some of the world's hardest training in the world, and this was the most pain I've been in my entire life. When I sat down in that chair and went to the bathroom myself and everything went south, when I had 30 miles to go and I was in the worst shape of my life, and I won't get too deep into it, but when I was able to go 30 more miles in the worst shape of my life, that's when I talk about it in the, You Can't Hurt Me, the whole mental governor got removed. And that's when I realized that a human being is able to do some of the most, horrific things out there. We are built very different. Like a lot of us, we're taught everything, how to read, how to write, how to drive a car, how to cook, how to clean. But very few of us are taught how to survive when the rug gets pulled from underneath us and we have to find more. Very few of us are taught how to fight. And at that moment, that 30 miles was about 10 years of life that I lived in 30 miles. And I learned how to fight in the hardest of times, in the worst shape of my life. Most of us fail in life because we're afraid of what everyone around you is thinking. That's 100% truth. So we live by the narrative of other people. When I first called a recruiter to be a Navy SEAL and I was 297 pounds, the first recruiter looked at me and said, "You're not going to be able to make this, man." So what he was doing was he's projecting his energy on me. He knew he couldn't be a Navy SEAL. So God helped this black guy, because I was only the 36th African American to make it through in over 70 years. How's this black fat guy going to make it through in my house? He wasn't even willing to try. So he's projecting this. So a lot of us who are negative people, all we do is project how we feel on other people. So what happens is there's a lot of negative people walking around the planet Earth who are afraid to try, because a lot of people are very negative in this world. So we are afraid to fail. Why? I told you, man. Shouldn't even tried it, dude. Just chill out, relax. Why are you so crazy? Why are you so obsessed? So all that stuff drives the quitting mind, I call it. The mind wants to quit. The mind's tired. The mind's tired. The mind's deserving. The mind thinks it's very deserving. So yes, the biggest problem in this world is other people, not yourself. It's other people in your head. They are puppet mastering you pretty much on your life.
And is that why you've talked a lot in this podcast about getting rid of noise, quiet, alone? Is that part of that equation?
It's all a part of it.
Yeah.
Because I realized once I was talking to myself the right way and all this wasn't in my mind, wow. I went from this piece of kid who thought he was dumb, not successful, insecure, who stuttered when I first saw somebody, to a person who can now do all these things just because I now control my own mind. And I don't care. A lot of people say they don't care.
But they do.
They care like a motherfucker.
My son says, "I don't care." And every time he says it, I don't care, it means he cares.
It means he cares.
Yeah.
When you get to the point where you really don't care,
You don't have to say
you're
it.
dangerous. You become very, very dangerous. I'm not saying don't care like, I don't care if I do that. No, when you don't care about other people and how they view you, about how you walk, how you talk, how you dress, where you want to go with your life. Growing up, I didn't want to tell anybody I wanted to be in the military. Because why? Some of my black friends, I was afraid of what they think. why you want to join the military, man? Why you want to do that? I was afraid of what other people thought about me. So now, when I go in the military, I didn't know you want to join the military. Yeah, I didn't tell you because I was afraid of what you thought. Once again, man, you're allowing other people to shackle your mind. It's the worst thing in the world.
What power have you found in the darkness?
First, before I answer that question, I want to say, everybody listening to this, I'm the happiest man on the planet Earth. So people may take this as so many people do. We live in a very weakened society. So when they hear a throwback guy like me from back in the ancient days of Garanimals, they often think this guy is just whatever. So if you think that I'm some unhappy guy, you're wrong. Having lived the life I've lived and seeing the other side, not being afraid to attack what was in front of me, has made me happy. Basically, what the dark side is we all have a cookie jar and we all have a jar of
That's its official name.
It's a jar of man, where it just ain't going right. And in Hell Week, what they do in Hell Week, because this is where I really went to the dark side. What they do in Hell Week is they design Hell Week to find your flaws. And they do a really good job of that. It's 130 hours of continuous training. You may get 2 hours of sleep. And they beat the shit out of you and find everything wrong with your mentality. And then they start Hell Week. And that's the beauty of it. And for me, I'm not some naturally God-given guy. I don't have a great bit of talent in anything. So what got me through horrible times was the dark side. My name is David Goggins. I created Goggins. Goggins is the guy that can take anything you put in front of him. You want to break my legs? So be it. I have a way of going to a place like I did in that race where all the pain and suffering that they put on top of me in Hell Week, I will reverse that pain and suffering and I will take your soul. So every instructor that put me through BUD/S, my job, what drove me, was I wanted you to go home that night after you beat the living shit out of me and I smiled in your face. I wanted you to feel worse than I did and you were going home to a nice warm bed with your wife or your kids and a nice meal, and I was still out there in the grip, suffering for another 100 hours. I wanted you to think about me knowing that I'm comfortable being very uncomfortable. And I want you to think about when you went through Hell Week, how uncomfortable you were and how bad you wanted to quit, knowing I'm not thinking that way. So the dark side is something that I've designed. It's an evil place I can go that very few things can hurt me. I use the hurt you're trying to put on me, I flip it upside down and use it. You trying to use it for kryptonite? No, it's power pellets for me. I'm using it for strength. I just flip negative into positive, that's all it is. Every morning I wake up, it's not just about working out, but for me, working out has been a very big part of my mental growth. So for me, if I am not challenging myself every day, and I swear to God, people will not believe it, I was over almost 300 pounds twice in my life. A person that does that twice in his life does not enjoy cardiovascular activity, okay?
Yeah.
So people can put anything they want to in their head. I did realize one thing. The things I don't enjoy that I still do, that's where growth is at. And that's, for me, the only place growth is at, is in that very uncomfortable, in that uncomfortable zone.
Yeah.
So I have to visit it every single day. So
and when you say visit it every day, what sort of things are you doing daily to push yourself?
So for instance, today I woke up and I just got to London and I don't know where to run here. It's very difficult to run around this place. So someone said, hey, you can run around out here, like around this 1 mile block. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not doing that. So I went down to the gym and there's this like crazy elliptical trainer, but it's not a normal elliptical trainer. It's one that you like almost self-power. It's very...
Yeah, it's not electric.
It's very difficult.
Yeah.
So I got on that thing and I realized, man, this sucks. And after like 2 minutes, I'm like, I don't want to do this. So right then I realized, it looks like we're gonna be here for a while. So I did that for 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying do that, but that's something I did today. Once my mind said, you know what, let's not do this today. I said, well, since my mind went there, I redirected it and said, just for having that weak thought, we're gonna be on here for a while.
I want to know, how have you evolved in your relationship with suffering and discomfort?
So think about it, when I say suffering, people cringe. People, that's the one word, whenever I post about it, people cringe. It's not about suffering and how people may look at suffering. Like you have to just go to a place that just every day of your life is suffering. You have to tap into suffering every day of your life because we have so much scarring that we have to clean up. You have to look at suffering as almost like I look at failure. To succeed, you must fail. In failure and in suffering, all the answers are in there. All the answers to all the test questions. The test is your life. All the answers are in there. You don't have to live in suffering and pain and failure all the time. You have to learn, I need to visit it. Like people hate working out. You're only gonna visit working out maybe an hour a day. 23 other hours of the day, you're not in it. But how you become in shape is you must visit suffering, visit working out 1 hour a day. Visit suffering 1 hour a day. Visit your past failures 1 hour a day. The relationship with it is the answers are in there. They are in there. Within the suffering, go in there, and I call it the live autopsy. The live autopsy. How you find out someone died? They crack you open after you're dead. How you can live is do it while you're alive. Go back in your brain, crack it open while you're alive. Don't wait until you're dead to figure out why you died. Do it while you are living. Go in there, go into the suffering, go into the pain of your life and say, why did this suck for me so bad? Why am I afraid of all this stuff? Why have I shut down the whole world? I guarantee I'll tell you why you shut down the whole world. It's in these nooks of the suffering within your brain, in the scarring, are all the answers to why you are on the couch feeling sorry for yourself. They lie within the scars. Visit them for at least an hour a day, study them, and then you'll find out more about yourself. You will then grow. So don't look at it as every day I suffer. Go into it an hour a day. Learn from yourself, learn from life, learn from your failures, learn from your insecurities, learn from your self-doubt. Don't just say, I'm afraid to jump off an airplane. What makes you afraid of it? Study it. That's why I studied my mind. Why I became so powerful in the mind is because I realized I was weak. So instead of running away from the mind, I dove into it and said, what is making me weak? Oh, this makes sense. I came from hell. I came from a place that beat me down to nothing, which is why I'm afraid. All this makes sense. So systematically, one by one, I went back and met every single person in my mind, every situation. I went one-on-one with them again in my mind and said, okay, let's now revisit this. And that's how you do it. That's how it works.
The mind is so powerful. And I didn't realize it. I went through 3 hell weeks, Ranger School, Delta Force selection, all this stuff. This incident I'm going to explain to you right now was where I realized we are only at 40% of what we are capable of. Here I am, right idea to do this race called Badwater 135. I Googled the 10 hardest races in the world. What came up? Crazy race in Death Valley. Summertime, 135 miles. I knew nothing about ultra running. I thought you would camp out, run 20 miles. Then one day, then run 20 miles again until you get 135 miles. I had no idea what I was doing. Called the race director up. He's like, hey, have you run 100 miles? I was like, what, in a week or what? What are you talking about? He's like, no, in 24 hours or less. I said, no. He goes, you got to qualify to get in this race. You have to run 100 miles in 24 hours or less. He was trying to call my bluff. I call him up on a Wednesday. He goes, hey, there's a race in San Diego on Saturday where it's a 24-hour race where you run around, a track, a 1-mile track for 24 hours. And if you get 100 miles, I will consider you in my race. It really helps to be smart, people. And I was not smart in this situation. I said, oh, I did the math. It's about a 14-something minute mile. I can do that. Anyway, I show up on Saturday with the blue lawn chair, Ritz Crackers Mileplex, and my ex-wife. And every mile I'm going to see her, I'm going to grab some Ritz Crackers and some Mileplex. I know what the hell I'm doing, but it's bliss. That whole ignorance is bliss thing. So I get to 70 miles pretty damn fast. I get to 70 miles in like 12, 13 hours. What do you think happens to your body when you haven't trained for that kind of mileage? A lot of bad things, but I thought I was in good shape. It was amazing. So I hadn't gone to the bathroom at all. I sit down, big mistake. I sit down in this blue lawn chair, I sit down, looking at my ex-wife, I'm seeing like 3 or 4 of her. I'm like, this is not good. So I'm trying to play it off because I know where I'm about to go. So I'm sitting there, and when you haven't gone to the bathroom, you're dehydrated, your nutrition's all jacked up, you sit down, you gotta go to the bathroom now. So I'm sitting there, and I'm all jacked up. And I'm like, okay, how in the world am I I got 30 miles to go. I should quit, but I didn't. What I started doing through this whole process was I started to study myself in the dark times. So instead of just quitting real fast, I said, no, I'm going to quit, but not right now. So I sat back for a second, and I said, let me get some water, let me hydrate, let me clean myself up a little, let me get some nutrition. I wasn't dizzy. So, okay, my feet are all messed up. Let me see if I can walk. I'm going to walk 1 mile, then I'll go home. That'll be a great accomplishment for me, 71 miles. So I took this massive thing, and I started breaking it down into small chunks. And as I started breaking it down into small chunks, I started realizing maybe I'll walk 1 more mile. But at the pace I was walking, I wasn't going to make the time. So this is when I realized the whole 40% rule. Those of you who worry, red can't hurt me, you understand it. Basically, the 40% rule is when we have a governor on our brains, like a governor on a car. A car may say 130, but if you put a governor on a car, it can only go 101. We do the same thing to our brains. I was born with limited horizons, born on the other side of the tracks. I didn't think I could be anybody. So my governor was myself. So once you take that governor off, you have limitless horizons. So here I am now, sitting in this chair, walk 75, I'm at 80 miles, but I'm not going to make the time. The most amazing thing happens. The brain, the mind, the soul, the spirit, it all connected. It's never happened before like this in my entire life. I ran the next 19 miles. I ran about 10-minute mile. I finished 101 miles in 19 hours and 6 minutes. I'm going to save you how the story ends, because it ends real foul. It ends in a tub with me peeing Coca-Cola out of myself. It was blood, and it was the best feeling I had in my entire life. I'm not sadistic, but when you push yourself to that level and accomplish something you thought was impossible, what happens to your body and mind is something I can't really even explain.
What got you up out of the chair?
Honestly, I create this thing called the cookie jar as I went through my suffering in life to become who I was. And the cookie jar was every time I failed everything so many times in my life. And failure, and I would succeed. I would fail, and I would succeed. I had to figure out how to succeed through failure. And I put a bunch of cookies in the cookie jar. The cookie jars are things when I start to get the woe is me mentality, which we all still get, even though you could be very successful. I reach in and I say, oh, this is my childhood. And this is what I did to overcome that. Because a lot of times when you're in hell, you forget how great you really are, because at that moment you're suffering. So you don't think about the great
things that you've done. I take time to really calm my brain down when it's stressed out and remember where I came from and say, okay, no, we can do this. We can do this through a calm, patient mind, figuring out how to do it. So I figured out how to do it, how to get salt, electrolytes, get some food, get some hydration back in me, get my blood pressure to the point where I can stand up. That was the first mission.
I gained about 50 pounds back. I was about 250 pounds. This is a story about the mind. I'll go through it real quick. So I didn't put running shoes on for about 9 months, 10 months. I was overseas deploying, came back with the free fall school. I was at military free fall school with Morgan Luttrell, Marcus Luttrell's twin brother. We got the news that an incident happened where everybody died and they couldn't find Marcus Luttrell. So I got the call. My job was to tell Morgan Luttrell, his twin brother, who was also a Navy SEAL, that his brother might be dead. 4 days later, they found Marcus Luttrell alive. What I did was I went online, Googled, different events. This event came up called the Badwater 135, 135-mile race through Death Valley in the summertime. I didn't know that was even humanly possible to run that far. I thought it was a stage race. I thought you'd put your shoes on, ran 15 miles, set up a barbecue, camped out, and then did it again the next day. It was a 48-hour race. I went out there and basically to raise money for the Special Operations Warrior Foundation. So I called this guy up named Chris Kosman. Chris Kosman was the race director. He said to me, basically, you have to run 100 miles in 24 hours or less to qualify. I never run past 20 miles in my entire life, and up until now, I probably ran 20 miles this entire year. So he says, I call him up on a Wednesday. He says, you know what, there's a race on Saturday. And if you run 100 miles in 24 hours, I will consider you in my race. So I wasn't real smart growing up, and obviously I wasn't real smart right now. So I did the math like less than a 15-minute mile. So I said, you know what, I can walk this. Dumbest decision I made in my entire life. Went out there about 250 pounds, and I get to mile 50. It's in San Diego in November. So on a 1 mile track. Where you go as many times as you can around 1 mile track for 24 hours. I get to mile 50 in about 12, 13 hours. I sit down. I sit in this blue lawn chair. I saw my ex-wife every single mile. I got Ritz crackers and Mileplex with my nutrition. I was a muscle head, so I drank a lot of Mileplex back then. So basically, here I am drinking Mileplex, Ritz crackers. By mile 70, I haven't gone to the bathroom one time. No water. That Mileplex tastes like hell, and the Ritz cracker is a ball in my mouth. This is where I really realized that, so I'm already a Navy SEAL. This is when I realized that we only use 40% of our mind. This is when I started going crazy with mindset and being a scientist of the mind. We go, I'm at mile 70, I look at my ex-wife, when you sit down and I have to go in the bathroom for 12 hours, what must you do? Go to the bathroom. So I sit down and I look at her, it's the first I've ever gone in my entire life. 7 hours, I'm happy, I'm feeling good. And I can't get up to go to the bathroom. It's literally from me to end the stage. So I look at her and I said, honey, do you love me? She goes, why? I go, because I can't stand up. My blood pressure's all messed up. I go, I'm taking a shit on myself right now. So I went back in my back and I started peeing blood down my leg. And my ex-wife's like, oh my God, you got to stop. This is when I realized throughout my whole life, all the bad times, all the good times, you know what? I'm not going to quit yet. Let me get better. Let me fix my blood pressure. Let me get some potassium, sodium, nutrition in my body. Let me see if I can fix myself. So I said, if I can just walk 1 more mile after being in the worst shape of my entire life, this would change everything for me mentally going forward. From this kid who came from dirt, nothing, who couldn't read until he was a junior in high school and is now here. I walked a mile. I said, maybe I can walk 1 more mile. Maybe I can walk another mile. At mile 81, my ex-wife looked at me and said, you're not going to make the time. When your mind knows it's not going to quit, and this is what I found out, this is my 40% rule. When your mind knows it's not going to quit, your body will adapt to whatever is in front of it. I ended up running 20 more miles. I did 101 miles in 19 hours and 6 minutes. And that one day changed, 19 hours. It wasn't SEAL training, it wasn't Ranger School, it wasn't Delta Force, it wasn't any of that crap I went through. It was this 19 hours and 6 minutes that forever changed my life to know that we as human beings are capable of anything. And we don't need any special kind of parents or tools to get there.
What is something that you learned about yourself through your process or your journey?
I learned I was leaving a lot on the table. And that's what scares me the most. I'm good now, but what haunts me is that at 24 years old,
I was 300 pounds, and if I didn't make a right turn, if I decided to just give in to the feelings I had, I would have died a 300 or 400 pound man working some minimum wage job in my casket, never knowing that I was this guy. And what fear, so I believe in God. And what scares me the most is I believe that God, in my own mind, I'm a big visualization person. So what keeps me going is like visualizing. It's not true, but it helps me. I believe that God had this big chart in heaven. And when you get there, if you earn your right to get there, you get there in heaven, and you get there, let's say I walked up at 300 pounds. And God says, hey man, great job, you made it to heaven. And he rips this page down from Brian Underwood. And now it says David Goggins' chart. He rips it down, throws that paper to the side. And he says, look at this. And I'm reading it. I go, what is this? He goes, how much do you weigh? 300 pounds. What did you do? I was a pest control guy for 40 years. He says, this is what you were supposed to be. You know what I'm saying? A 185-pound person. Be able to run 205 miles. Break the pull-up record. Motivate people. Energize people. Make them driven. Make them passionate. Make them find more. So am I in heaven or in hell? That's what motivates me. It scares me also. Because I believe that we are all leaving a lot on the table. And now when I go to heaven, what I want God to look at me and say is, as you were living, I'm the all-knowing man. I had to get a damn marker out and write more as you were living. You see what I'm saying? I want to impress him. That's what I'm here for. I want to do the impossible.
I believe that you have to build belief. Belief is like, there's an after school special belief where the mom says, believe in yourself, and that's all great. But there's also a built belief. And the built belief is one where you are constantly, like for me, I came from a bad place. How I build belief is through the daunting tasks I put myself through. So that's proof positive that I can. So it correlates. And that's how this piece of kid I once thought I was built belief by saying, I was in 3 Hell Weeks. I went to Ranger School. I tried out for Delta Selection.
Undeniable stack of proof.
That is proof. So whenever you think you can't, the confidence comes from the thing that you built. You must build belief. You must build confidence. It can't be like, hey, I'm going to knock that shit out. You got to look over here and say, I can knock that shit out. It's belief, and it's built on what you put in to yourself.
There's like this allure that you have where it's with anything, any type of keynote from David Goggins, any type of video from David, podcast. What do you think it is? What do you think it is that attracts people to your content?
I think it's my take it or leave it kind of mentality where I don't really think about your feelings. I don't really care about what you think or what you think about me, or if you're soft, if you're weak, if you're hard, if you're an alpha, if whatever the hell you are. I just don't really care. And I'm going to say what I believe is going to get you better. It may make you pissed off at me in the interim, but in the long term, if you really think about what I'm saying things to you that I had to listen to and, tell myself. And it's just sometimes hard truth sucks.
What I'm most impressed with is training the brain. Would you say to those of us that are listening and watching today that every time you would get through a day of Hell Week or just a day of training, whatever it was, that the mind does almost like a muscle, the voice does change and you can train the negative voice?
The mind, as you know, is not a muscle, but it almost is.
Yeah.
It really is.
Right.
If you stop going to the gym,
right,
your muscles will atrophy.
Yeah.
If you stop training your brain, the same thing will happen. So I learned to callus over. I did 4,030 pull-ups in 17 hours to break the Guinness Book of World Records. Your hands become very calloused. Calluses protect your hands. Mm-hmm. What I learned to do is through mental hardening
is callous my mind. I had a victim's mentality. I learned to callous my mind over the victim's mentality. And you have to be willing to put yourself in very difficult situations at all times to be able to do that. So my big takeaway of life is if you're constantly taking the easy way out, you're never going to callous your mind. I was at MIT. They called a person like me to MIT to speak to some of the biggest head guys on the planet.
Oh yeah,
these guys.
Brains.
Oh, brains. So I was on this panel, and I'll talk about it in my introduction of my book. And all these brainiacs were there, and they called me in. Like you say, I didn't go to college for this, but they're all theorists. I'm a practitioner.
That's why I asked you. Absolutely.
That's the difference. And so they're all sitting there, all these great, smart minds from MIT are asking these brilliant guys questions. I ain't say a word. I'm like, I'm intimidated.
Right.
But I know that half of what they're saying is wrong. Because what these theorists did, even though they're very smart, what these theorists did was they took a poll on normal people. And this is what you get.
Of course.
This is what we cannot do. So theorists love telling you what we cannot do. This is what we can do.
Right.
So one person in the crowd asked me a question, why aren't you saying anything? I said, pretty much I disagree with almost everything up here on this panel because I'm living proof that everything that they're pretty much saying is not true.
That's right, because you were an average person.
I was a below,
sure.
Below average person. I was a chameleon living in life who could barely get by. So I know that they were taking the normal mindset of people. They weren't talking about the 1%ers. The people who want it like there's no tomorrow. And so that's what I started realizing was we have theorists and we have practitioners. So what's in my book is from going into the dungeon. And when you're in those points where you want to quit and not quitting and seeing how the mind starts to operate in those moments of fear, anxiety, self-doubt, insecurities. And that's where you learn to fix it. You don't fix it in 72-degree weather. Drinking a milkshake, watching TV. You fix it by going into the environment.
You made military history, though. You finally got into the military. You had to lose, what was it, 180 pounds or something like that? Some crazy number.
So after I got in the Air Force, I had some setbacks in the Air Force. I realized I was afraid of the water. So I wanted to be Air Force Special Operator, Air Force Pararescueman. And I worked my butt off to do it. And, I got in the water and I realized I'm not, me in the water, no fun. So I went from 175 pounds to 297 pounds in 3 years. And then I sat at home and all those insecurities from my high school years came back. Just everything. I was like, man, I'm
not
nobody.
feeling good enough.
Right, not feeling good enough. Making $1,000 a month, spraying for cockroaches. And I came home from work one day and I watched this, it was a show on Discovery Channel or History Channel, something like that, but it was Navy SEAL class, Bud's class, 224. Going through training, and it was nothing but water, and they're going through Hell Week, and they're freezing, and people are quitting left and right. And I sat down at 297 pounds with a chocolate milkshake and a box of mini chocolate donuts. And I'm watching these amazing men going through training. And I felt like, man, I have to now really start to overcome my fears because I felt so small. Every day I had this haunting voice in my head saying, you're nothing, you're nothing. And I had to start conquering myself. And I lost 106 pounds in less than 3 months. There's several days I don't want to do shit. I procrastinate like a This is one of those days, man. I put my shoes and my socks and my shorts on every day. Woke up this morning and just stared at them. Didn't want to do shit. Didn't know why I was doing this shit. A lot of times we forget just how badass we are. So what I do, and I've done for so many years, I write down. I've been writing, so this book right here, this is just about a 3-year book, but I've been writing down for years what I do. So I open up to a page today, look at it, and I go through looking at 18 miles, 16 miles, 17 miles, 15 miles, 16, 116 mile week, 123 mile week, 20, 18, 16, all by myself, training alone, push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, all this shit I write down here to remind me of the work I put into the craft that is myself. So we have to always remember our purpose will always be there. I have nothing in front of me right now. No race, no nothing. But the purpose is myself. Your mind
has to be stronger than your feelings. On those bad days, when you think that you're alone, you just might be. Because you know why? No one else wants to do it. So you be the that always gets it done.
What is the accountability mirror?
The accountability mirror was, my life, I blamed everybody. And a lot of people had a lot to do with my failures, but it's now mine to own. I had to start owning this myself because they weren't.
We will make
back.
excuses
Yes.
for anything and everything.
Right. My father wasn't coming back. The people that called me names weren't coming back. Nothing was coming back to save me. So I realized I had to save myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you know what? I have to make changes.
Right.
And that's when I invented the accountability mirror, where I started putting down, I'm not smart. And I put a sticky note on the accountability mirror. I'm this, I'm that. And my mirror was full of sticky notes. And every day I went through and I tried to kind of like solve these problems.
Right.
And the biggest problem it was trying to fit in. I was trying to fit in. I was blaming other people. I wasn't taking accountability for my own actions. I was doing all these things wrong. And as a 17-year-old trying to teach yourself this, it was difficult.
Yeah.
And it snowballed from there, but I ended up passing that test. I passed the ASVAB test.
My average workout day, so every single day of my life is very routine. I wake up and every single morning I run. I don't care if it's snowing, raining, sleeting, hurricane, tornado, I'm running it. Why? Because I hate to run. People don't believe that because some people told me to brag Forrest Gump. Yeah, I often tell jokes. So he didn't smile. Let's laugh. Yeah, I do that. So basically, every day I do that, and I don't run inside. I don't run on treadmills. I'm not about being inside. Outside, because outside sucks. Horribly bad. It's hot. It's hot. It's cold. It's cold. Then I go to the gym 4 to 5 days a week, and every single night, without fail, for the last 6 years, I am stretched out for 2 to 3 hours every night. If I get off a plane at 2 o'clock in the morning, I gotta drive 2 hours to my hotel room, you can guarantee me one thing, I will be stretching out at 4 in the morning. I want to be a person that thrived under great adversity. I got obsessed with watching Rocky, Platoon, all these kind of war movies and these different movies of people going through adversity. And I always talk about what really changed my mindset was 2 minutes and 13 seconds. And I came home one day and Rocky was on, or I think my buddy had it on at his house. He taped a whole bunch of movies and whatnot. They had these 2 VCRs and they would tape movies. And he was watching Rocky. And I was, Rocky 1 was on round 14. And I'm sitting there watching this guy who I wasn't familiar with, obviously, get knocked down. And everybody was telling him, his corner man was saying, stay down, all this stuff. And I saw the champion, who was Apollo Creed, turn around with his hands in the air like he had beaten this guy. And I saw this guy getting up and the music and everything was just perfect. It was like the perfect storm for me. The music was very inspiring. The moment with everybody saying stay down and he was getting up. And when I saw this guy get up, he looked like he was beat to shit, but he got up. And when I saw this Apollo Creed, I later found out it was Apollo Creed, turn around and see Rocky get up. All I remember was this great champion in Apollo Creed. I remember seeing his face, and not many people look at the face of Apollo Creed the way I did. I looked at it as, my God, man, this guy looks totally defeated. And he looks like defeated because he saw this guy get up, because and that right there was what I wanted to be. So it was like 2 minutes, 13 seconds, whatever it was, that clip, that scene it became my new mental vision. Is I didn't care about winning. I didn't care about any of that. I just wanted to go the distance. I wanted to have that kind of heart, that kind of character to continue getting up in life. And I realized I had to become very uncomfortable to develop that kind of mindset. I didn't want to be Rocky by any means. I just wanted to be the kind of guy that continued to fight and to continue to get up and not look for the easy way out. I wanted to find pride in myself, because I saw pride in that guy, Rocky, just by getting up, just by the mere fact of getting up after getting the shit kicked out of him. And I wanted to feel that way. So that's kind of where it started for me. I wanted to feel pride.
What does a morning look like for you at the moment? Have you got a routine of some kind?
Yes, I run every single morning. So that's
what time are you up? When are you waking up?
I'm up about 5:30. So every morning starts with a run.
And that's because that's the one thing I hate to do more than anything in the world. So that's like my cup of coffee. And I'm all about armoring yourself. So the second you leave your house, and the second you open your phone, the second you do any of that, you are now letting in poison and cancer. So I make sure a lot of things you can't avoid. So as I get up, I start to armor plate my mind and body. Like a person's going to war, you put your body armor on. That's what I'm doing on that run. I'm waking up and I'm giving myself all this armor. So when I come out in the world, now look at that phone, I'm ready. I'm not waking up late. I'm not rushing around. I'm not disorganized because I know I'm going to get hit in the fucking mouth. There's an art to getting hit in the fucking mouth. And that is why these things are important. You have to wake up and you have to give yourself belief. You have to give yourself confidence. So it starts with that run. So after the run, I come home, I eat something small.
How long's the run typically at the moment?
Nowhere under 12 miles. So 12 miles is the minimum.
And what are you getting that done in? How long?
It depends. Right now I'm running heart rate. So I'm doing like 8:15s, 8:30s because I'm retraining right now. Because
what's that? Is that zone 2 for you?
Zone 2.
Yep.
Because of the leg surgery I had. So I'm going back, starting from scratch. So anywhere from about 1:30 to 2 hours, I run every day.
How did the negative voice lead you to the weight gain and kind of keep you in the sewer, as you say?
So the most important conversation you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself. Mm-hmm. You wake up with it, you walk around with it, eventually you'll act on it. Mm-hmm. And my self-talk was the most disgusting self-talk of all time. Mm. So the sewer of my mind, like I said, you have to go back in there and fix things. A lot of us are afraid. Like right now, 20 years ago, you wouldn't find me on this show. I was too embarrassed to tell you I stuttered, I lied, all these different things, getting beat up, getting bullied, whatever happened. But that's where the true transformation starts to happen. When you can look at people, anybody, thousands of people, one person and say, hey, this is who I am. And this is where I have to fix myself. And this is where it really happened. I thought it happened when I was in, 19, 18 years old trying to pass this military test. Right. It happened here when I was almost 300 pounds spraying for cockroaches, making $1,000 a month. And, people called me dumb. My dad called me so many things, it's not even funny. Being beat just stripped me of all self-esteem. This is when I realized I was alone on this earth. Yeah. I have God, but alone on this earth, and I have to fix everything. So this is where I started to develop an indestructible mental toolbox. A lot of us run away from our fears. Sure. And we box ourselves in to a lifestyle of this is all we can do. Right. Because I'm afraid of everything outside this box. Yeah. So I'm comfortable inside this box. I jumped the box.
Oh, you did, yeah.
For the first time in my life. Mentally, I jumped the box and said, hey, I got to come out here and play. Everything I had gone through, I realized that the human mind, if you can put it in a very quiet, calm place and get it to calm down and not be so spastic, that you could possibly make this work out for you. How bad are you really? So I calmed myself down and I had to make this enormous thing small. I had 30 more miles to run and my body was in the worst shape in my entire life, the worst pain I ever felt in my life. So I broke this 30 miles thing down. I broke it down to small chunks. I calmed my mind down. I had to get water, had to get potassium, had to get sodium. I had to stop being so dizzy because I had to be able to stand up. So my dizziness went away after about an hour. I was able to stand up now. And I was going around this track at like a 30-some minute mile. And I'll never get my crew person saying, hey, I got to mile 81. They said, you're not going to make the time. I had 24 hours and I was going so slow, taking so much time. This is when I realized that the human mind, once everything gets connected, once the mind knows you're not going to quit something, it's going to try to find more. It's going to try to give you more. Once it realizes you're not going to take the path of least resistance, you're going to stay here until it's done. My mind and my body and my spirit became one for the first time ever. For the first time ever, it became one. And I went to a level that I never thought was humanly possible for myself or anybody else. In that shape that I was in, I was able to run 19 miles. And I ran 19 miles, did 100 miles, actually did one more mile. I did 101 miles in 18 hours and 56 minutes. I'd overcome so many obstacles in my life, and this was the final crucible for me. And I got through it. And at the end of this race was such clarity to me. And it was just the most amazing thing I ever do in my life.
You have to remind yourself, we all have a story. All of us have gone through very hard times. But when we're in a hard time, our mind has a way of forgetting what all we've overcome. I have a way of taking 1 second when I want to quit and saying, okay, you endured this. So I look at my life and how I came up as the ultimate training ground versus most people look at it as why? Woe is me. God, why?
Right, exactly.
Why?
Right.
I had to flip this upside down and say, hang on a second. God was training me to be one of the baddest men on the planet Earth.
Absolutely right.
That's how this was my journey.
Do you begin to realize in this moment how mentally strong you are?
Yes, because those things beat me.
Sure.
But they didn't kill me.
No, not
and
at
I
all.
was able to work around them and figure
right.
out ways through it. So when I was in the worst time of my life in Hell Week, I looked at everybody and said, I'm the most trained person here.
Yeah, well, that's the truth.
I've gone through more mental torture than any of you all can even fathom.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the baddest people on the planet. I'm looking at them like this. You guys can't hold a stick. So I started looking at verses like, I don't belong here, versus like, I might be the baddest person to ever come here.
Wow.
Who could have pulled this off? Who could have been given a sewer to live in their mind and say, okay, at birth, I'm gonna put you in the worst place on the planet Earth and let me see if you can go to the top of the mountain.
Right.
With nothing.
Right.
But just hard work, grit, and figuring it out and not putting yourself back in the dungeon every time something got hard. So that's what became my daily voice was, you really are the baddest person on the planet.
Well, some of you read that I think about when it's hot outside, that it's sunny and 70. Well, it's not today. It's the reality. It's about 90 degrees, 100% humidity. But who gives a shit? That being said, September 3rd, I had to have my book turned in. And what I realized, I'm reading this book a lot, but I realized I wasn't born this. I made them. At the bottom of insecurities, fear, self-doubt, lies, was me buried in the fetal position. How I got out of that was recognizing it, being honest with it, being truthful with it, and then fixing it. We like to live on social media with lies about ourselves, how great we are. Get to the source and fix the problem.
I read your book and you've overcome a lot from your upbringing. So my question is, when you stop blaming your dad, and maybe not forgave, but when you stop giving him the power away for why you were the way you were, what did that do for you as a person and as a father?
Well, it did a lot for me as a person. It did a lot for me as a person, as a man, as everything. So once you realize where you come from, so I went back and I faced that. I faced my father, and by facing my father, it allowed me to realize, because as you're growing up, you may look at your dad or your mom or whoever it may be as like they're not human or they're just evil. No, they are human. And they also came from, maybe a bad childhood. So I was able to really go through and really dissect my father. And by me dissecting my father, I got a lot of answers on why I was so weak, why I was so pathetic, why I didn't want to go be better. But that said, though, my father's demons had to go somewhere. So they went to me and my brother, and they went to a lot of other people. You have to realize that you have to now solve for your demons and solve for his for you to move on. So when you get that kind of strength, when you're able to look at these demons eye to eye and say, I'm not going anywhere, I'm going to face you every single day, what happens is you start to callous that mind. You start to realize that all the bad things you went through, it doesn't matter anymore. I know where I'm going and I'm focused on getting there. So it just starts to, and once you stop caring about what people think about you, and once you stop caring about where you came from, if it was a bad place, you become very, very dangerous. Very dangerous.
What the hell are we all waiting for to start attacking life? Waiting for the stars to align? Back when I was growing up, the song came out. All I need is a miracle. Well, guess what? That miracle ain't coming. There is no perfect time to start. You gotta start now with changing your life. We're all being tested in life. And guess what? This is one test you can't cheat on. We all have our own test. Some of us are obese. Some of us are depressed. Some of us are insecure. In the military, we had this big old rucksack on the back. Had batteries, water, extra gear. Your extra gear is just you're dealing with in life. And the only way to overcome it is for you and you alone to face it. You have to do your best work when you're least motivated. So those days you don't want to do it, guess what you got to do? You got to suck it the f*** up and do it. Stay hard.
I'm not a very known athlete. I'm not a professional athlete. I'm an underground athlete. I didn't do anything to accept these amazing awards. I did it because basically I grew up very tough life. Lived in a horrible place, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Got beat down so bad by my father that he beat the courage and strength out of me. So I had to find a way to kind of get it back. And how I did that was literally examining my soul. So in doing that, I started looking for the most uncommon people in the world. So it brought me into special operations, from the Air Force to the SEALs to Rangers. And along the way, I started realizing how powerful the mind truly is and how little we use of it. So when I was getting beat down, I thought I was nothing. I thought I was the lowest form on earth. And to develop my mindset, what I did was I started joining special operations unit, looking for these courageous men. And I found them. And when I found them, I started realizing that it's all in your head. The most important conversation is the one you have with yourself. You wake up with it, you walk around with it, you go to bed with it. Eventually, you act on it. And my conversation was a bad one. So the people who I thought were up here in my life, these uncommon men, I was putting myself down here. But over a period of time, I started realizing that I'm also uncommon. And I started pissing those uncommon men off by realizing that we all have this ability in our mind.
Talk to me about the accountability mirror.
So the accountability mirror is something that I kind of came up with in high school. Like I said, I started shaving my head when I was 16. And I got caught up in trying to impress so many people because no one liked me. So I developed so many different identities. Let me sag my pants. Let me pull my pants up. Let me talk this way or act this way or be this way or whatever the hell it may be. God, dog, there's so many different things I did to try to fit in with so many different groups that when you look in the mirror, that's the one person you can't lie to. So every morning I would shave my head thinking, God, I would reflect back on some of the lies I may have told somebody or some of the ways I acted that I didn't feel comfortable doing. And I did it to impress other normal people. The key word there is normal, everyday people. I was trying to make other people like me. How pathetic is that? So this mirror would always tell me, my reflection would say, God, you are a pathetic man. How does that feel every day to be this way? So I would just start having myself accountable. How did I attack today? How did I attack yesterday? And if I didn't do something I was proud of, I would write down a sticky note and I would fix it. So then my senior year in high school, it was a totally different David Goggins.
You work out every day, you haven't missed a day.
Been doing it for the last 20 years of my life.
20 years? Or did I say 2 years?
No, 20 some years of my life.
Every day you work out.
So I used to take one day off a week. I used to take one day off a week.
For the body to recover, right? Makes sense.
But that one day off was an active recovery day where I would get on a trainer and ride for like 2 hours.
Wow.
But at a zone 1 heart rate, very low heart rate, and I replaced the carbohydrates in my body while I rode, because the best way to recover for me is to do something at a very low heart rate, because therefore your blood's flowing through your body.
Yeah.
As your blood's flowing through your body, refuel it with the nutrients, because then your blood's flowing, the nutrients is going through all your cells in your body. All that glycogen is now flowing at a low heart rate. So it's not burning it, it's refueling it.
Yeah.
So every Sunday used to be that. And it kind of snowballed into, as human beings, we believe, like so many people, before I give them a workout plan, they're talking about recovery. Everybody that hears me speak, they want to go straight to recovery. Work out first.
Huh.
Work out first. Before you talk to me about recovery.
How to recover, yeah.
Work out first.
So a lot of you know that my knees are messed up, but that doesn't mean you don't stop going. You don't stop pushing. Life's about improvise, adapt, and overcome in every situation that's in front of you. A lot of people hate that message that I say continue pushing, continue finding your new 100%, continue finding your best self. If you don't like that message, this is not the place to be. I'm about people trying to find the best they have, not making excuses, overcoming any and all obstacles. So today, I can't run. I can't do much, but you can guarantee one thing. David Goggins got the after it. He got the after it. I don't give a f my knees don't work. I'll find something else that does. Ha ha! Stay hard.
What kind of advice can you give my team, anybody in the audience here who wants to do better, but it's just not happening right away for them?
You know what, the best advice I can give everybody about people who are trying to get started, people who are trying to get better at anything in life, the one thing that kept me down for so many years was I had these different voices in my head. And not that I'm crazy. And some of y'all may think that. I'm not. So basically the voice I had in my head was of other people who weren't trying to get where I was trying to get. And you know, growing up the way I grew up, from having some people bullying me, from having disabilities, me bullying myself, all these negative voices kind of replayed in my head over and over again. It wasn't until I was able to literally shut out every single voice but my own and stop being afraid of being judged. I was so afraid of being judged, especially when I was younger, because basically I was like one of 5 black kids in the school, and I was trying to find my way, and I wasn't the smartest kid, I wasn't the dumbest kid in school, so I hid out in the classroom. So being the only black and being the only in the classroom, I tried to find the furthest corner away from everybody I could. So please don't call on me, because first of all, I look different. Second of all, I'm not smart. It wasn't until I started saying to myself, you know what? Who gives a shit about who's judging me? Who gives a shit about who's judging me? That's when everything changed for me. So the pressure you start to feel when you're trying to get better at anything, it's not so much the pressure from you. It's the pressure you feel around everybody around you and the people who are judging you. And the people who are usually judging you are the people who haven't even tried to do what you're trying to do.
There's a concept in your book that it permeates the whole book, and I think really is one of the most important things for people to understand in their own life, certainly to understand you, and it's the notion of detesting mediocrity. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about that. How did you instill it in your life? How can other people instill it in theirs?
It's one of the biggest things in the world. A lot of us, mediocrity is everywhere right now. And we're all trying to find an easy way out. And we're judging ourselves. Let's say there's 10 people in this room and we're all mediocre. But I'm the best of the mediocre people. I now think I'm great. I'm great. We surround ourselves around people that make us feel great. They tell us what we want to hear. The second we put ourselves amongst the uncommon people, we don't like that feeling. That challenging feeling of that person who's waking up at 3:30 in the morning and say, hey, put your shit on, we're going for a run. We don't like that challenge. We like that person who says, hey, you know what, man, I don't feel good today, man. And they say, oh, it's okay, brother. We'll take a day off, man. We'll get a pizza and watch the game. We like that. We love that feeling. Why? Because you understand, man, we're good, bro. We don't want that like this. Hey, man, no, bro. Get your shit on, man. Stop being a punk. We don't want that in our lives. We don't want that person who's constantly challenging our weaknesses. We want that person who's constantly, making us feel nice and good and secure in ours. That's the mediocrity of life. We want to be the best amongst the average people. People wonder, how do you stay hungry all the time? Because after I accomplish something, I don't sit back like a lot of guys who graduate buds, graduate this, graduate that. They get comfortable. They wonder why I'm getting weak, man. I don't know, I lost my edge. what's going on? Because once you hit the top of the mountain, guess what happened? I'm good. I'm good. So you wonder why you're falling down now. Because once you reach the top of the mountain, you got to build another one. That's mediocrity. There's a lot of people in mediocrity who have a nice resume, but they're one-timers, man. They hit a one-time deal. They busted it open, got a lot of money, but they're good. You're mediocre now, man. What are you doing today, tomorrow, the next day? That's why I'm listening to theorists. I don't listen to all that bullshit. I listen to who's like this, man. What's wrong, man? I'm tired, dude. Why are you tired? Because tomorrow, I got to do the shit again, man. Whatever the shit is that made me nauseous and sick to my stomach, it made me hurt. There's no ending. And that's the person I listen to. That's the person who's gained knowledge. You gain knowledge through suffering. And on the other end of suffering is a world that very few have ever seen. It's a beautiful world because that's where you find yourself. You don't find yourself in over here. You find yourself on the other end. Like the 100-mile race I was on, I ran it for 24 hours. I found myself on the other end of that race. That 19 hours, I found, wow, there's a whole nother world out here that I've never even saw. But the world's in your mind. And that's what all that mediocrity is about. Mediocrity is contagious. I'm the only person in Navy SEAL history to be in 3 Hell Weeks in 1 year. Hell Week is 130 hours of continuous training. I got into Hell Week, got double pneumonia, stress fractures, got rolled back to day 1, week 1. I broke my kneecap. So I reported back to day 1 of Navy SEAL training broken. And we had a guy die in my 3rd Hell Week. So Hell Week ended about 30 hours early. I had severe stress fractures. My knee is now blown up again. I knew I wasn't gonna get a chance to go back through Hell Week again. I made a decision to myself, there's no more quitting. So that's when I went and got duct tape. For the first 45 minutes, the duct tape hurt like hell. But after 45 minutes, my legs would go numb. Once stuff goes numb, you can't feel it. So that's how I went through the rest of 22 more weeks of Navy SEAL training. I was already at rock bottom my whole life. So when you know how rock bottom feels, you don't mind sleeping in the sewer. So at that point, once I realized that I already experienced the bottom, I no longer had fear of failure. But this took a long time. This wasn't like I woke up and, oh, eureka, I got it. I started realizing that the mind is the most powerful weapon that we have. Once I was able to quiet my mind and realize that I was really not cursed, but blessed to have so many tools that I never saw as tools. While growing up, so much hardship. Only thing that can happen for me now is this victory. I Googled this race called the Hurt 100. It's a 100-mile run in Hawaii with 25,000 feet of climbing. Only 27 people had ever completed this race. I didn't know any of these stats. Ignorance is bliss. I show up there with compression tape on because my feet are jacked up, severely bad. And I show up, I finish the race, barely, call Chris Kosman up, get my application in just in time. He says, you're an idiot. I cannot believe you went out to that race and did it. I get into the bad water. He says, they select the top 90 athletes in the world. I got 5th my first year, came back, got 3rd, ran 7,000 miles in 2007 to raise over $2 million for Special Operations Warrior Foundation. And thank you. Since then, I'm getting inducted into the International Sports Hall of Fame in March. I've done so many things. I got the VFW Americanism Award. I beat Lance Armstrong out in 2008 for the world's fittest man. I'm not on steroids, but he said he wasn't either, so who knows? And just to leave y'all with this, I didn't get deep into the weeds because I didn't have much time up here. But I did everything I talked to you all about with a hole in my heart the size of a dime. So I didn't get deep about how sick I was through Hell Week, through Ranger School, through all these races I did. I thought it was just normal to be that jacked up. I ran 205 miles in 39 hours. You're supposed to be jacked up, but not as bad as I was. Basically, everything I talked about, my heart, so you know how you have the good blood and the bad blood, oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. My good blood was getting mixed in my bad blood. So I was working off about 60% of my capability. These doctors, when they found it,
They found it in 2009 when I damn near died. Because when you're in your 30s and you have a hole in your heart, that's not real good, especially doing what I was doing. I'm not even supposed to be in the military. So I snuck by, thank God, or maybe not, who knows. But long story short, people, is that a whole bunch of these scientists and doctors came out to study me. I was like a lab rat. How did you do what you did? And one doc, they couldn't find anything genetically gifted about me, like was something just compensating for something else. How did you do this? One doctor sat back and said, this guy figured out all the tools of the mind. And I take a lot of pride in that. We all have a lot more ability than we think we have. And it's up to us to find it.
How did you make the change and eventually get into the military?
Well, I realized with the learning disability, I was going to need a lot of help. So my mom, got enough money to pay $15 a week for 1 hour for a tutor to kind of come in and help me out. So my ritual became pretty much study, work out. Study, work out. And that became my whole life. So I went from this character to a very focused person. And the only way I can learn pretty much, even still to this day, is through repetitions. I had to put so many different reps in. It's absolutely unreal. And that's where my real work ethic began. People think it's because of my running and everything else and my weightlifting. It started with literally just trying to learn how to read and write. Mm-hmm. And I had to literally go to the store and I bought these spiral notebooks. And we only had, like I said, an hour a week. So it would take a lot more than that to learn all of school in 6 months. I had 6 months to learn all this to pass this ASVAB test. I failed it a few times before. So I had to get these spiral notebooks and I literally had to write down everything repeatedly in these spiral notebooks to put it to memorization. And how I would pass these tests is I really didn't know what they were talking about during the test. I just memorized all these different formulas and equations and just, different kind of spelling words and different kind of paragraph comprehensions and all these different I memorized all this stuff. And basically when it came time for the test, I remembered that I saw it on page 71 or 72 or 130 because I had written it down so many times and I could just recall it from that. So I literally developed a photographic memory through the kind of work I put in behind, my studies.
What's your purpose right now?
My purpose right now is to continue. I used to have a wash rag when I did this. And you know how you take a shower, you have a wash rag and a cloth and you're sitting there and you're just lathering up. And before you hang your rag up, you want to get all the water to come on it and, get it all the suds out of it. Then you want to wring it out and you want to hang it up. So my big thing is when I live my life, I want to make sure that when I'm dead and gone, that I wring that wash rag out, and that wash rag is my soul. And I also believe that we're going to end up one day meeting a maker, if you believe in one. And I believe that maker knows everything about you. Everything about you. Knows I was going to be here and talking to you. Knows everything. But you also have a choice to make. You have a choice to make. We have choices. And the one thing that scares me to death in my life is getting to heaven and not being what I was supposed to be. And I believe that God has a chart, and he looks at the chart and he puts it in front of you when you get to heaven. He says, hey, this is what you're supposed to be. And one of my biggest fears in life was to see that chart and not have every block checked off. I want to make sure that I'm constantly pursuing whatever it is I'm pursuing just to be the best I can, just constantly grinding myself into a fine powder, but doing it in a smart way. Like I talked about, you can constantly grind yourself into a point where you're just sick. There's a happy medium of grinding. So that's my purpose now, to continue to push myself so others can see what is possible.
I think we need to rethink how we frame failure. Like, I don't even like that word. You know what I mean? Because it implies such a negative outcome or perspective. Like, there should be a different word for it, and then we wouldn't be so caught up in it. You know what I mean?
What you said is so true. That word doesn't bother me because I look at it like you are trying to say it. Failure is just a word. For me, failure was me having more information on how to succeed. That's all failure became to me. So I failed so much. Pull-up records, running events, had to quit this, buds, Rangers, all this crap I had to go back through. All that was, I failed because of these reasons here. Go back to the drawing board, figure out the right equation, put it together, go back, fail again. Oh, but I got more information. So everything I was afraid of, I made sure to meet it right in the face and overcome it.
What does a morning look like for you at the moment? Have you got a routine of some kind?
Yes, I run every single morning.
So that's
what time are you up? When are you waking up?
I'm up about 5:30. So every morning starts with a run. And that's because that's the one thing I hate to do more than anything in the world. So that's like my cup of coffee. And I'm all about armoring yourself. So the second you leave your house, and the second you open your phone, the second you do any of that, you are now letting in poison and cancer. So I make sure a lot of things you can't avoid. So as I get up, I start to armor plate my mind and body. Like a person's going to war, you put your body armor on. That's what I'm doing on that run. I'm waking up and I'm giving myself all this armor. So when I come out in the world, now look at that phone, I'm ready. I'm not waking up late. I'm not rushing around. I'm not disorganized because I know I'm going to get hit in the mouth. There's an art to getting hit in the mouth. And that is why these things are important. You have to wake up and you have to give yourself belief. You have to give yourself confidence. So it starts with that run.
You state that when you're living in hell, the only way to find your way out is to confront the devil himself. You know, who was that devil for you?
It took several years for me to figure out who the devil was. And the devil was my father. The devil was my father, but what I didn't put and never finished was the devil really was me. So what happened was I put all this blame, and trust me, my father and a lot of people had to do with my upbringing on how it was. But like I put in that book, no one's going to come back and say, hey, man, I apologize. Maybe someone does. Very few people will. So at the end of the day, when all things are said and done with, while my dad was the devil, and I believed that for a long time, I had to confront him. And when I confronted the devil, so what I thought was the devil, I realized that I was the true devil. I was the one holding me back. I was the one looking for the scapegoat. And, I was the one looking for all these ways to say, it's okay, David. You're a loser. You're a born loser, so it's okay. And I was hoping my dad was going to give me that confirmation. And he was a loser himself. But at the end of the day, when I left there, I realized, well, man, it's on me. My dad's f***ed up. My mom's f***ed up. The people around me are f***ed up. They're not going to save you. You got to save yourself, my friend. So that's when all that reality hit me when I went to Buffalo to see my dad on that drive home. I was like, man, this rest of your life is going to suck. It is going to suck. Not because you're going to be a loser, but because you're going to finally start to win. And winning is not easy, my friend.
There are a lot of people that are listening right now that either are dealing with this very issue that we're talking about.
When we finally left Buffalo, after all the physical and mental beatings that my dad handed out, we left Buffalo and I went to to me, even worse environment. I went to a very small town in Brazil, Indiana, where there was about 5 black families. And in 1995, the KKK marched in our 4th of July parade. So that being said, it paints Brazil, Indiana, that's the town I'm talking about, in a very bad light. And there are a lot of good people in this small town. So I want to make that very clear. Sure. But what happens is when you come from a very broken foundation, your mind only sees hate and evil. There was one time I was in my sophomore year, walked in my Spanish class to get my notebook, opened my notebook up, and inside the notebook, someone drew a little character of me in a stick figure hanging from, like a noose on like a hangman game. At this time in my life, I was a sophomore and I had about a 4th grade reading level because I cheated all through school.
Right.
All through school I cheated because I realized I was going to get put in a special school.
Right.
So I found a way to get by, and this is how I got by.
Right.
So what I'm getting at is all this between my stepfather getting murdered or soon-to-be stepfather getting murdered, all these things compounded into the lowest of low self-esteem. So what started happening was I started lying. I became an amazing liar because I wanted people to like me. When you come from a society like I did, I had 0 self-esteem and I feared things. I had 0 self-confidence and I was looking for anything I could that I could gravitate to. So it was lying. But that's when I realized, and it was a long process, that without having self-esteem, you are done. That's the number one thing you have to have in your life.
a lot of people are listening to this right now, and a lot of people probably feel they're not worth they probably feel like crap about themselves. What is something that you're able to share with people that can help flip a switch, or is there anything, or do they just need to come to their own realization? They need to hit bottom. They need to go through some first in order to get there. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, what's funny, man, is that I'm not speaking for every big guy by any means, but I was once the big man. And I realized a lot of us big guys, man, we got some serious demons. I hung around big guys, and we'd all break down, and we started talking about our personal lives and how fucked up we all are. And hey, why did you become big, man? We all had almost a similar story of insecurities.
Yeah.
And walking around in the airport looking like a gargantuan, man, people look at you differently, and you get a little more self-esteem. So I'm going to be talking to a few of us out there when I say this, man. The biggest thing in life that you have to do is you have to be proud of yourself. You have to start developing that personal self-esteem. And it has to be something that it's an internal thing. And it has to come from a lot of hard work and dedication. And you really have to, I call it like right now, I see your headphones on your head. I walk around life with so-called headphones on my head, man. I don't, really wear them, obviously, but I just have these earmuffs on that I silence out the noise. I silence out the judgment. I silence out the self-doubt. I silence out all the naysayers. And, those people get in our head, and then we start getting in our head. And the most important conversation we'll ever have is when we have it ourselves. And like you were saying to yourself, man, I'm dumb, I'm this, I'm that. I was the same way. So if that's what you're constantly repeating to yourself in that internal conversation, man, that's who you're going to be. And my biggest thing for these people who are out here is, honestly, man, you have to start callousing over that victim's mentality. You have to start building this mental armor that no matter what anybody said, that you can be in a room full of 1 million people, and all million can be like against you and calling you names and whatever. You be like this, you know what? Roger that. You can go f yourself, man. 'Cause I know exactly where I'm going. I know exactly what I'm doing. And that's the kind of self-esteem you have to build in yourself, man, in this kind of society today, because it's tough. It's tough out here nowadays.
I talk about theorists. I talk about practitioners. A theorist is a person who reads a book, doesn't do it, reads a book, learns about something, and then talks about it. A practitioner is myself. A practitioner is a person like me. I wanted to be an expert in the mind, a mental toughness guy, beyond mental toughness. The only way to do that, in my eyes, is to put yourself in hell. Put it in hell repeatedly. Repeatedly put yourself in hell and study how you process it. And that's how I was able to come up with all these different ways, all these different tools to slow the mind down in hell. Because the mind just speeds up. The mind wants to get out of the painful situation, the suffering. It can't process it. So that's what I realized by going through all these different processes of being in hell weeks. Is just that.
I love that, man.
How the mind processes in hell. I started this crazy stretch routine, and I literally have healed myself through the discipline I had. And what people won't believe is I got to a point where I stretched out for 8 to 12 hours a day.
So essentially, like most of your waking hours when you're not working out.
Stretching.
Yeah.
And it went from that to 6 hours a day. Then from 6 hours a day to 4 hours a day, the more I would open up. So the hips
and
are your soul.
Is there like a specific routine of stretches that you would go through? Or
I would sit and stretch a whole big routine, a whole mess of like opening up your abductors, because your abductors are attached to your hips, your hip flexors, everything is attached at this region here, your midsection, your hips. And my hips got so tight that I couldn't even squat down. I had so much back pain. So that's why, another reason why I started running. Running, you stay upright. I couldn't squat anymore. I couldn't do any of that powerlifting stuff. So the only thing I can do is run. Running didn't bother me too bad. And it got to the point where I couldn't run either. And my health got real poor because my spine was collapsed. And
I just got real sick. And basically, I healed myself. No doctor can find out what's wrong with me. So I couldn't run a lot. I couldn't do any activities. So I said, you know what? I'm going to bury myself in stretching. And what happened was I had this huge knot on the back of my head. The knot came from my spine collapsing and getting tighter and tighter and tighter. It developed fluid or whatever. Long story short, as I started stretching out, that bump started going away. And the smaller the bump got, the healthier I got. And I was like, what in the world is going on? So I shave every day. So I would feel this bump. And the bump, and you can see it right now.
Yeah. No, I can see it. Yeah.
Most people think everybody's a bump in the back of the head. My bump was like this big.
Mm-hmm.
It was huge. And the more I stretched, the more it went away. The more it went away, the healthier I got. I was like, man, so I'd be like, I'm going to keep on stretching. So my stretching it was crazy. And I got healthier. And I was like, my God. So I stretched more and more and more. And now I've been doing it now for 3 years. I haven't missed a day of stretching in 3 years.
The problem that most of us have is we think that we're all alone. We think that we're the only ones going through all this stuff. I thought it. Most of us think that if you're fat, which I was fat for a while, you think you're the only fat person in the world. Your vision becomes very narrowed. And what happened to me was, all I did was I peeled back. I peeled back, and I was able to get on top of a mountaintop in my head. And when you're high on that mountain, you have a great vantage point. And I was able to look down at the world, and all of us are jacked up. Some of us hide it better than others, but we're all jacked up. And once you realize that, you got to come out of your shell. You got to accept who you are. You got to accept the demons that life gave you, that maybe you gave you. Whoever gave them to you, you got to accept that. You got to be able to look them in the mirror, look them in the eye, and say, okay, I'm going to start fixing these things. But if you think that you're by yourself, the reality of your life becomes very, very horrible. And you're not. We are all jacked up. And once you realize that, man, it's like whatever. You don't even look at the crowd anymore. You look at your own race, you do your own race, you do your own thing, and you finally find out who you're supposed to be in this life.
The 1 second decision is, I had to live through that 1 second decision several times during this race. So this race took me 100 and some hours, okay? And this is what people don't get. For you to finish that race, even though I DNF'd, I still finished in the time. So there's a lot of pride in that. So what I do in that 1 second, because we all think about quitting when it's hard. But what you have to do in that 1 second is hard to process information during pain. Because that pain takes over and you can't think rationally. You're thinking about fight or flight, save yourself. That's not a rational thought. It's not a thought that's going to get you through hard times. Most people fail that 1 second. So what happens, what I do in that 1 second, and there's a bigger process to all this, but in that 1 second, I physically stayed in that water. Because if I get out of the water, I quit. So I physically stay in the water, but mentally, I'm on the beach with the instructors. And the instructors, it's cold outside, so they got these parkas on. They got their cup of Joe, and they're warm because they've already been through it. So now it's your turn to go through it. So mentally, I get back with them. I'm still in the water physically, but mentally, I'm back with them. I'm chilling. I got my parka on, and now I'm thinking logically because I'm warm now. Mentally, I'm warm. I've taken that 1 second. Let's not quit yet, Goggins. Let's think about your options. Where are you going to end up if you quit this? Where are you going to go? What are you going to say to yourself? Because you know you're going to get warm. The second you get out of this water, you could take a shower and you could be warm. And in 5 days, you could be out. So I start thinking logically. I calm my brain down because your brain just wants to get the fuck out. Ring the bell, put your helmet down, get warm, and then you're really fucked. And these are the things you have to think about in the 1 second decision. So that's what that's all about. It's about gaining control of your mind, putting things back in the proper perspective, and then saying, I really do want to be here. And I'm going to have a bunch of these 1 seconds through this 130-hour journey. And I have to learn to control these, because if I fail one of these 1 seconds, I will not be a SEAL. I will not be a doctor. I will not be a lawyer. I will not be whatever the fuck it is. So that's how important that 1 second decision is. It's all about your mind takes control of you. You have to say, fuck you, I run this. And that's what that's all about.
You talk about the importance of having the right people in the foxhole with you. How do you know who the right people are?
You know what? That was something that took me a lot of years to figure out. You know you're the right people in your foxhole when you're waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, you're going to bed at midnight, and you're waking up at 3 and no one says, is this smart to do? You need some time off. You need to take a break. When I started hearing that, well, I know what I'm doing to myself. I was behind the power curve, man. When everybody starts off in first grade, I had them negative grades. I started off in the dungeon, man. I had to dig out of the damn grave to get to first grade. So now when you're 20 years old, well, everybody graduated high school and all this other shit, man, I got to make time up. So while people think 24 hours is one day, for me, it's 3, 4, 5 days. I got to make up time. I'm behind. I got to go to summer school in my mind. When a who's with me realizes this has got to go to summer school in his mind, he's got to make up time. He needs 22 hours of the 24. And they just get it. He's trying to go somewhere. You are the right person for my foxhole. I don't want to hear no shit about resting. I can't rest right now. I don't want to hear no shit about what I'm doing to myself. I know what I'm doing to myself. Did you see how I came up? I got to catch up now. And that's what life is about. Sometimes you are raised in a position where you are behind. We have to make that time up. I'm sorry. It may be inhumane. You may be unbalanced. It may not look right to you. I don't give a fuck. It's the situation that life put me in. And I need people to say, when I don't want to get up at 3 in the morning, I need a man in my life that sees me go to bed at 12 and wakes me up at 3. Saying you need to get this done. That's the foxhole. I don't need critiquing. I need pushing. I need pulling. I need anger. I need passion. I need drive. I need them, man, those bad days. I don't need somebody in my ear saying, man, because then that's all a person needs is that. Support can go a lot of ways, man. It can go a lot of ways.
So this is where the 40% rule comes in, people. Worst shape my entire life. I've been through Ranger School, Delta Force selection twice, 3 hell weeks, all this crap. This is the worst pain I've ever been in. To this day, I'm 43 years old right now. I did 21 years in the military. I've done 60 ultra races, pull-up records, all kind of stuff. This is the worst pain of my entire life to this day. But this is when I had to realize one thing. I had to break this humongous thing down to very small. All I put in my mind was, let's not quit yet. I'm going to quit, but not yet. So I sat there. I can't stand up. So let's get some nutrition. All right, I'm not dizzy anymore. Let me clean this crap off me, okay? I need some food. I'm going to quit after I eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. All right, but not yet. Let me see if I can stand up. Stand up. Maybe I'll quit. Let me see if I can walk to the car. There's the car. It's a 1 mile track. I'll walk past the car. I'm just going to get back to the chair. I'm not going to quit yet. I kept this mindset the whole time. I ended up doing 30 more miles. Did 31 miles, truthfully, after that. I did 101 miles in 19 hours. If you're driving a car, the car may say 130 miles an hour. The factory puts a governor on it, so you only go 91. So you're sitting there when to race somebody. They have no governor. They're fine. Boom. You can't, because every time you get to 91, the car starts doing this. Starts doing this. We put a governor on our brain. And the second we get to that governor, our bodies start doing this. Oh, this sucks. This is uncomfortable. No. Let's go this way. Let's stop. It starts giving you all these questions that we cannot answer. If you can't answer the questions your brain is asking you, you quit. If you have the answers to those questions of why the hell am I out here, and you give it a quick answer, the brain starts shutting up because it knows why we're doing what we're doing. I started figuring these things out in my life. So we have this governor on our brain, and how you start pushing past that governor, start realizing your brain has the tactical advantage over you. Why? Because it knows your insecurities. It knows when you're lying. It knows your fears. It knows everything about you.
Let me ask you something. What does it mean to you to be referred to as the toughest guy in the world and to be called the gold standard and extraordinary and superhuman and all of these different descriptions of you that make it sound like you're a one-off, that it's almost unattainable, what you've done with your life. What does that mean to you in terms of your message?
I mean, I guess the whole hardest man in the world thing, that, you can call it what you want, but that title came from where I came from. And, it's like, I had limited horizons. So if you were to have 1 million people in a room and you had all of their resumes, like from the age of 1 to the age of 20, you would never pick me being where I am now. And that's where the hardest man in the world came from was, how many people can come from where this man started to where he is now? So it wasn't really so much about, all the physical feats, going through, still training 3 times and Ranger School and all these things I've done that helped give me that title. But the biggest reason I got that title was because when I realized, I was the fallback plan, I just refused to give up. And the thing about that, Chris, is I figured this out. Most of us are only 1 to 10% away from greatness. But we think we're so far away from it that we never try. And once I started going down this journey, I started realizing that, and those percents started to add up. And before I knew it, my mind started hardening, and I started passing so many different people that I thought were so far above me. And then before I knew it, man, I became uncommon amongst the uncommon.
Belief is something, I can't tell you, believe in yourself. That's a bunch of crap. Belief came from me, was going through those hell weeks, taping those legs up, getting up early in the morning by myself, no coach, getting myself up, motivating myself every single day. When I'm out there in 240-mile runs and I don't want to be out there and I'm 90 miles into it and I have 150 miles to go and no one's there saying, come on, David, I'm forming belief. Many people form belief in many different ways. For me, this is how I do it. So when those hard times come my way, I know exactly how to get through them. When I I self-published my book, Can't Hurt Me. No one believed in me. I believed in myself. I sold almost 5 million copies of that. Now Never Finished just came, it's coming out December 6th. Never Finished, I guarantee you, the audio book will probably go down as probably one of the best audio books. It sounds cocky as hell of all time. It's truly amazing what we put into that book because of how I've lived my life. A lot of people come up here and speak about motivation and pushing yourself, and they're not doing it. They're not waking up every single day. They have a canned speech they go off and they tell you about what to do, how to do it. Wake up every morning, make your bed, take a cold shower, all that crap. I'm telling you right now, you have to be that person that leads from the front. Many of you out here are in leadership positions, and many of our leaders right now are not leading from the front. They're leading from the rear, but they're telling you how to do it. They're waking up late. They're not doing what they say. So in life, it's real important to do what you say because that's where true knowledge comes from. And when I was going through Navy SEAL training, there's one thing I told myself. I wanted to quit every single day. But many dreams die while suffering. And many of us out here have suffered. And when you're suffering, I'm not talking about just physically. I'm talking about emotionally, spiritually. It could be a relationship. When you're suffering, you give up on the very things that you wanted the most. When I was going through pararescue, I wanted to be a pararescueman so bad. But that water haunted me. So when the suffering got too much, my dream died. And pretty much I almost died with it. If I didn't find Navy SEALs and getting past that hump and overcoming my demons and facing my demons every day, I would have never been up here today. You can't outrun your demons. They'll always know where you're hiding. Trust me at that.
And I'm gonna end with this. Don't stop when you're tired, stop when you're done.
Have you tried to control how you feel, how you react to people, anger, jealousy, hate, whatever, and trying some kind of mastery of that? Do you see that as different to the mind?
Jealousy, 100%. You have to, if you're jealous about anything, that is a horrible thing. Anger, I've done really well with controlling it nowadays. Back in the day when you're insecure. So all this stuff comes from conquering yourself. Once you feel good about yourself, all the anger, not all of it, we're human. Jealousy, these things start to really go away. She's like, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm a very emotional person. So I'm very passionate because it took a lot for me to be who I am today. So I'm very emotional.
Yeah.
But it's just the passion in me about the sacrifice I put into being who I am today. So.
And sometimes that spills over, sometimes you lose control of it?
It's not losing control, I allow it to go. So I got this award for the VFW called the Americanism Award. And I'm speaking in front of like 5,000 veterans. And I get the award and I'm thanking people and I turn back to my mom and I look at her and for 58 seconds just cried. Because I had a chance at that time to look and see what I've accomplished and where I came from. And I wasn't trying to hold it, but I had to get myself together to give my speech. But it was a very proud moment for me to be able to reflect and say, okay, man, you've, not like I've earned that right to cry or to be emotional, but it felt good that literally I grinded myself into a fine powder to get where I'm at today. And it just came out in that way. So, yeah, emotion is a beautiful thing. You don't want to, if you're emotional, that's bad.
Yeah.
But if you show emotion at the right time, I think that's a beautiful thing.
So it's still an essence of controlling it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because you want to be in control of your mind. You want to be in control of your mind. Emotional people, they're a wreck. They control, that emotion controls everything you do.
Yeah.
And what emotional people do is, like for instance, I always say this, they can have a beautiful life. Husband and wife, kids, everything they want. But it's the one thing that they don't have that makes them emotional. So that emotion makes them focus on what they don't have. Emotion makes them focus on everything negative, everything. Pity party, woe was me, this didn't happen. So your mind loves that. It loves talking to other people. Oh, this is all f***ed up, man. Think about it. People love to complain about everything. So when you're sitting there, you may spend weeks, months, years about the same thing. So what have you done? Nothing. There's no solution in that.
Yeah.
But most of us live there. Oh, this other guy got the pay raise. The other guy got this. The other guy got that. And we live in this emotional state of, woe is me. Nothing gets accomplished.
Hi, David. What do you think about people who are using Ozempic for weight loss?
You know what? I'm all about people doing what they need to do in life. That said, I think that they're missing a big part of weight loss. For me, I lost 106 pounds. I was almost 3 years, I was 297 pounds. And the weight loss journey itself, it's a journey. It takes you through this maze. It's not a straight line. It takes you to this maze of emotions. One day you may lose a pound, one day you may gain a pound. It's a fight. And the only way you get better is through the fight, through the struggle. If you do things like that, oh, I lost it real quick, you're not getting the full benefit of the hard work that it took to get there. And through that hard work, you don't forget that. You don't forget those months, those years it took, all those workouts, all those diets, drinking tons of water, going to bed early. When people go out to dinner, you got to ask the chef to make your damn meal special. All those things are not fun. And that is where you grow. So when you take these weight loss pills, do what you want. I don't give a damn. But what happens is you miss the biggest part. The biggest part of the weight loss is what happens to your mind along that horrible journey. So I got stronger, I got better. If you want to take the weight loss pills, do you. So that's what I think about it.
Because you made it this far in a video, I want to celebrate you. Most people start and don't finish. Most people never actually follow through. Most people say they want something, but they don't ever do the work to actually get it. But you're different. You are special. Believe Nation, you made it here all the way to the end, and I love you. So as a special celebration, if you put a hashtag believe down in the comments below on this video, I will showcase you and celebrate you somewhere on the screen in a future video because you are awesome.
For some incredible Jocko Willink motivation, check the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
The chronic excuse maker. How do you stop making excuses? This is actually pretty simple. And I said it the other day, and you have to realize, you have to know